Now, the federal government of Nigeria has answered lingering questions of how it intends to fund fuel subsidies in the current year, 2022. A day after the federal government announced its plans to delay implementation of the Petroleum Industry Act and retain repayment or payment of petrol subsidy for another 18 months, the government yesterday approved 3 trillion naira for the new subsidy regime. The Federal Executive Council approved the sum at its weekly meeting in Abuja. Putting all of this together for Michael Ogunremi, macroeconomist and fixed income analyst with Chapel Hill Denham, joining me live here in our Lagos studios. Good to see you, Michael. Yes, thank you so much. It's a brand new year. We appreciate you folks making the time to be here.
Thank you very much.
3 trillion naira subsidy bill on the fiscal appropriations for this year. What will be the fiscal impact?
Well, I think the big question will be, is Nigeria, a net importer or net exporter of crude oil products? That essentially defines what will be the, impact for Nigeria. I like to think that, quite right, Nigeria is an exporter of crude oil, but we are a net importer of crude oil products. So you talk about PMS, you talk about kerosene, you talk about diesel. All of these, we stand in an import position as far as this is concerned. And the implication of fuel subsidy for a net importing country is you have to make some sort of direct payment from your budget. But if we were a net exporter of these crude oil products, basically, the cost would just be in terms of lost revenue, which is basically implied. But in the case of Nigeria, we're saying that we'll have to pay more, and that would definitely mean that we might have the budget deficits going much more higher than the 6.4 that is budgeted in 2022.
Well, where does that leave the Petroleum Industry Act?
Well, I think it's obvious. I mean, it's a stalemate as far as I'm concerned at this point in time. Because what it means is the presidency will have to transmit, the act back to the National Assembly for them to sort of tweak it and rejig it to, make account for, this extension and then this provision that they are making, that they're providing right now. So I think overall, I mean, it's more or less in a stalemate as we speak.
Is it a well-worn argument or still a valid one that removing fuel subsidy at this time will have inflationary impact?
Yes, in a way, I agree with them because subsidies are price shocks.
From an economic point of view or from a political statement point of view?
Well, from an economic point of view, I agree with them. Because subsidies are price shock. The moment you take them out, definitely you're going to have an increase in the prices of that particular commodity. But there's a tweak to it. And the tweak to it is, even if the subsidies are taken out, but the government relinquish control of prices, and then, they are also able to, bolster the markets with enough supply. I don't think the impact on inflation will be, overly excessive.
Really?
Yes.
Was there any chance that this administration had talked about fuel subsidy removal for as long as the last 6 years or so? It was never done until it was going to be put in 2022 budget, knowing fully well, historically speaking, that the year before election in Nigeria is always a political year.
Yes. Well, I think honestly, the topic of fuel subsidy has always been a question of balancing political consideration and economic consideration. From a political point of view, it's very, it's unlikely that they're going to take it out because it's a pre-election year. I mean, it's a negative score for the government, right? So it goes to another the next administration. Absolutely.
And then politics start all over again.
Absolutely.
And fuel subsidy remains again.
Absolutely. But what I like to think is, I think the administration that would have the guts to take out the subsidy will be the one that is really keen on ensuring that the refineries are up and running.
This administration, Buhari's administration, is keen on getting the refineries working. Everybody had been keen. I haven't seen one single administration that is not keen.
But
it's just the refineries never work. Everybody's keen about it.
Absolutely. But talk is cheap, right? Talk is cheap.
Yeah, I know.
It's the action that really matters. I remember.
What action would you want to make the refineries working? Sell it, privatize it, retain it, pump more trillions of dollars or naira into it?
If history is anything to go by, I really think that it should be privatized.
Option one.
That's going to be my option one.
Yes,
definitely privatization, because I feel that the government, because of structural bottlenecks, are unable to get a strong grip on the on refineries.
Interesting conversation. The NNPC Limited is the owners of these 4 refineries. Yeah. So the NNPC itself is a limited liability company as today.
Exactly. So you see a nexus there, right?
Yes.
If it's sort of the parent company is already privatized, then what does, I mean, it's basically says
I'm trying to think like you investment bankers.
Exactly. I mean, the subsidiary should be privatized
The subsidiary should also be limited.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and go the same way. Because
Absolutely.
right now, it has all it takes to go the privatization route.
Absolutely.
So maybe we should just have done that instead of saying the subsidy thing, maybe. But again, this is resting with the new administration. The Anambra Governor-Elect Charles Soludo says he's going to make his announcement of driving locally assembled vehicle. This is going to be the first former governor of the central bank becoming a governor of a political part of the federation.
Yeah. I think
Innoson should be happy by now. maybe not just Charles Soludo himself only. Maybe his entire cabinet should drive Innoson vehicles.
I couldn't agree more with you, right? I think that when Soludo was the CBN governor, one of the things he always emphasizes, we're spending a lot on imports. It's costing us a lot, and I mean that has been the narrative. I mean to date. And so he coming out to say that he's going to be using locally made cars, I think it's just right on point for him.
Interesting. Okay, Michael, you hang around. We have a few more to you. I don't know what type of car you drive, but I think Innoson will be happy if he can get it. He's getting one state out of 36 plus the FCT.
Yeah.
He's raising the curtain. We're back, everyone. Stand by. We'll be right back. This is your GBR. With me here in the studio is Michael Ogunremi, who is the macroeconomist and fixed income analyst at Chapel Hill Denham, an investment banking house licensed by the SEC. Michael was just talking about the local production of vehicles and all of that, and what the Anambra State Governor-Elect Charles Soludo talked about his own whatever. But again, the impact of government officials, government agencies patronizing made in Nigeria or local brands, how long will that go in resolving our issue to become highly industrialized, a manufacturing hub across Africa?
Well, I think in terms of credibility, it sends a message in the international market that yes, if we're able to patronize our own, it's a good thing for us. But to be very honest, I don't think that's the solution. I don't think that's the main solution to the crisis we have in the manufacturing sector. Right?
Really?
Yeah. For me, I think there are three more topical issues that I would prioritize above we patronizing our own brands. Number one would be FX. Right? I do think that FX is still a very big issue, and we need to find a way around the bottlenecks in that space. I also think that availability of financing for a lot of these manufacturing companies is a big concern. And I mean, that's where I would give it to the CBN. They have quite a lot of, intervention programs, in that space.
But if you raise demand, my friend, if you raise demand, what demand does in business is it pushes the entrepreneurs or the businesses to go to the banks. Some of them could come to Chapel Hill Denham and say, look, I need to do a CP, I need to do a bond or whatever. Can I get it done because I need to scale up because this is demand. I have tenders.
I agree with you, personally.
And you guys will find them the money.
Absolutely, we will find them the money.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't doubt that, But the fact remains that, it's demand creates supply, quite right. I agree with you on that. But it is imperative for certain factors to be in place for that supply to be driven. And that's where I feel that, issues like access to finance, issues like resolving our FX, because the truth is, it's going to take a long time for us to be 100% dependent on local raw materials. We still have to import.
Yes.
And so if we don't find a way around our FX challenges, it's still a big issue.
If we can kind of begin to look at import substitution at some point, I think it's an entire playbook thing, and you can't tear off any page out.
Exactly.
I think it's all on the same page because if you want to increase supply, then you've got to have the raw materials you need.
Yes.
And again, everybody now with and all the leading economies around the world are saying, look, maybe the world has changed with this COVID-19. We better have our own supply chain that we can have a massive control over. We don't know what is going to happen next, in which borders will be closed. Perhaps it's going to be the shipping line, it's going to be airline, it's going to be road, whatever it is. We need to have it at home. I think we should make that a national discourse, by the way.
I agree with you.
So we're no longer at the mercies of...
I agree with you.
Because even look at carbonated drinks, this 2020, 2021. Prices of consumer goods went up because we don't even have control over the PET bottles, not what goes into those bottles.
Exactly. I mean, it's important that it's a national discourse. In fact, I think it's already a national discourse. Because when you look in Nigeria, we do quite a lot of planning. We've
been talking about local content.
Yes.
We have a national local content development. In fact, before that, we have a RMRDC, which is a Raw Materials Development Council. We've been talking. We just don't seem to have been able to get it up and running.
I mean, so just like I said before, talk is cheap. I mean, we have to like put action out there for us to actually for us to show that we are really serious about these things, right? It's not enough to say, oh, we want to do all this. So you talk about the raw material, development council now, for instance. I mean, how much of science and technology do they do? How much of research, did they do to show, new advancement that we can, replicate to support our own production? I mean, very
we have research centers.
Yes.
I think we got about a dozen or so of them flung across the country.
Even much more.
Even much more.
Yeah.
But it's only now that the central bank is saying, look, let us go back to universities, which ought to be our first port of call.
Exactly.
When you talk about research and development using the youngest of brains like yours, still in the universities, and they can all connect to the investment, to the corporate and organized private sector.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the integration of education and productivity. I mean, it cannot be overemphasized. That's the truth about it, right? Research starts, research as far as I'm concerned, starts with education, and I mean, you see a lot of it in the universities. You have a lot of professors in these universities. They have a lot of ideas. And so just integrating it, into the real sector is what we really need.
I'm surprised because these universities where folks like yourself came out from, and you got quite a bunch of you who are research analysts in the financial services industry. So I see a whole lot of that happening. Those of you with very flying colors in economics and related fields, applied economics, come out of Nigerian universities, and you're doing so well in investment banking, investment research and services. But I can't see that in science and technology, for example.
I mean, it's obvious. It's obvious. So the way to look at it is, if you take the GDP, for instance, the GDP of Nigeria, look at the evolution of, a proxy for science and technology as a sector, and then compare it with the growth of the financial service sector. It tells a different story. The narrative is different, and that is why you see, someone who just, graduated, from economics, thriving well in the financial service space, but you don't see that in the science and technology space. Because, I mean, that sector is not really growing to accommodate, the kind of innovation that it should.
But even within the technology space, the digital folks and the fintech guys seem to have followed you guys.
Absolutely.
They just tie to your apron,
exactly,
which is finance, so they just go. But the bulk of technology that would drive industrialization, that would drive automobile vehicles, light manufacturing, and everything else doesn't happen.
Yes. I mean, technology feeds into everything. Virtually every other sector of the economy feeds into it, right? And so it explains, why, like you said, a lot of people are going into fintech, but you're not seeing that in other part of the economy. And that is because there hasn't been that integration. There hasn't been that integration with other sectors of the economy, just like you have in the financial service space. Technology, I like to say, is like a pull factor. I mean, it attracts sectors that are already growing. Right, so if a sector is not growing or is growing at a slow rate, I mean, it's going to take a longer time before it gets, technologically developed. So I think that's the narrative to what you just said.
Part of the idea of subsidy removal, if we go back there very quickly, was to also grow local content, of which we have a total setup of a local content development board, Nigerian local content, whatever. But do you think this petrol subsidy back on the block will make the guys in the local content say, hey, for how long are we going to do this? Yeah, because we need the local content also in the oil and gas industry.
Yes. I think the idea of local content, and this subsidy, I like to see it as, do we want to take a proactive stance to this, or do we want to take a reactive stance to this? I think that as far as, spurring local development is concerned, it has to be proactive. And that's why I say that my opinion or my view is, before you can take out subsidy, you have to be self-sufficient in producing your own crude domestically. That is what really saves you the odds. If we don't have that local content development, I mean, it's hard for you. Each time you say you want to take out the subsidy, you keep having revolution, you keep having, people saying, no, you can't take it out because that is the only source of, and if you look at it, fuel subsidy is more like the only welfare program that most Nigerians enjoy currently to date. So it's going to be hard to take it out.
Also, since Nigerians don't enjoy it, that the money goes into a few pockets, and some folks say it's a fraud, whatever it is. We're not even sure what it is.
Yes, I agree with you.
We're not even sure. Yeah, there's subsidy.
Absolutely.
But we're not too sure who really does the money go to. Oh, by the way, 5,000 naira was to be paid. It looks like we've lost that money now. 5,000 was initially announced for about 40 million Nigerians to cushion the impact of the fuel subsidy. Now they're not going to get the 5,000 naira fuel voucher anymore.
Absolutely, absolutely, because it was supposed to be a substitution for removing the fuel subsidy.
But the 3 trillion is what is now on the table. That's much bigger than the 5,000 anybody's going to give.
I mean, so just like I said before, Nigeria is a net importer of crude products.
Crude oil at 90. I'm sure you analysts are beginning to say, "Oh my God, good news, bad news."
Well, in the case of Nigeria, it's mixed. It's mixed, so it then depends on what exactly.
It's more of a bad news than good news.
Well, I like
your budget for this year is 46 or thereabouts, oil at 90, so you have nearly 100%.
Well, I like to think the bad overwhelms the good. Honestly, I like to think so, because on the bad side, you have to pay more in terms of fuel subsidy. On the good side, you earn more revenue, but we're not our production is not really at the level that can help us stream in.
This is the time to really enjoy oil price, crude oil price rally, by the way.
Exactly. I mean, it's a mystery right now in Nigeria. I mean, there was a time when we had the oil windfall, but we don't have that now. And it basically speaks to
we've got oil windfall. I mean, we just have a leaking basket under where the money is coming down into.
I agree with you.
If you do a budget in a corporate at 40, 46 for your budget, and you're raking in 90 from the market, you're an investment fellow. There's money on the table.
Absolutely.
Not even under the table. On the table. That's 100% above your budget for the year. Shareholders are going to be happy.
Absolutely.
But now Nigerians who are shareholders are not happy.
Absolutely. I mean, the truth is, just like I said before, I think as far as rising crude oil prices is concerned, the bad overwhelms are good for Nigeria. That is just the truth about it. And to tie it up, to what you said, the leakages, as far as oil revenue is concerned, is enormous in Nigeria. I mean, the plug-in into the basket is just so many of them.
So in the last 2 days that the announcement has been made, how have you guys at Investment Circuit be holding meetings and making phone calls and say, hey, what happens to the investment market? Tell me, what are you guys saying?
Well,
what's the chatter about?
Well, I mean, to be honest, it basically speaks. So for investment, right? When the government say, look, we're going to spend an extra 3 trillion, to fund subsidy, what it means is that's an expanding budget deficit. It means they definitely want to go to borrow more from the capital markets, domestic capital markets. From an investment point of view. And so what that means is, we might see, much more issuances, as far as, the
DMO will expire its calendar for the year.
Exactly. That's what I think. Size? Exactly. That's what I think. So I think subsequent auction, we might see them, selling more. They might be a little bit more aggressive because the government needs to raise money to fund that 3 trillion.
And what will happen to the rates on these financial papers, by the way, then?
well, it's hard to call, because the DMO has a monopoly of rates, as far as I am concerned.
But it's the only issuance.
Yeah,
it's the only issuance.
But if we're saying they're going to be more aggressive, then I think it's safe to say that we might see, the rates going up, but I don't think it's going to be anything explosive. It's just going to be gradually until it gets to the point they want it to be at.
Do you think any of these things will flow into the equity side of things? Or it's going to squeeze it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Investors are, they play both sides of the market. Equity is fixed income, right? So if they see a better fixed income yields, you might see some sort of, cannibalization, people moving from equities to the fixed income space. The only downside is, it's the release of the full year, financial report for most companies. And so if we see, good numbers coming out, we might not see that cannibalization, show forth like that.
Well, that'll be 2020, that'll be 2021, look back earnings.
Yes, exactly. As far as the equities market is concerned, investors react to historical information.
I agree.
It's an accurate predictor for them.
I agree. Yeah. Thank you so much, Michael Ogunremi, macroeconomist and fixed income analyst with Chapel Hill Denham. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
For the first time in the year.
Thank you.